Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to start another very exciting reading vlog for me because I'm going to read my first Toni Morrison, and I decided to go with Beloved because this is, I think, her most famous work, and I'm very excited to read this. Now I have to be honest, I don't know much about it. I know that it is set around the time when slavery was abolished, I'm pretty sure, and we're following a mother who's, I think, haunted by her dead daughter, but I'm not quite sure. But yeah, I'm very, very intrigued to read this book. This will be the last one of this series, so yeah. I'll let you know what I think. I will update you at the 25% mark, the 50% mark, the 75% mark, and then when I've finished it, to give you my full thoughts on it. And yeah, let's go on that adventure together because I'm just so intrigued to finally read Toni Morrison. So it's finally time for my first quarter update of Beloved. I am about 77 pages into this book right now, and this is an interesting one. I have to admit that I struggled with the beginning a lot. Like, the writing style is just very unusual to me personally, and it was really hard to wrap my head around the words. Basically, I had to reread a lot of sentences, a lot of the paragraphs, because I wasn't really grasping what they were trying to tell me. Also, this does deal with like multiple timelines, but they're interwoven in a way that always got me really, really confused in the beginning because I was just not used to that kind of a narration style. But I feel like this has gotten a little bit better now because I had some more time to get into it. So I hope that by the second quarter now it won't bother me anymore and I will be able to read this as any usual book that I normally read. But yeah, so far nothing much has happened. We're basically following a family. We're concentrating on the mother, and I don't know how to say her name, so I'm not butchering it. But she had 4 children, 2 daughters and 2 sons. And we learn that by now she has lost 1 daughter and the 2 sons have moved away, and now she's just living with her other daughter. But the house they're living in is haunted by the ghost of that toddler sister that, yeah, was lost basically. And because of this haunting, the family does have some trouble in the community, and especially the remaining daughter is suffering from that. She feels very lonely. And when we start this book, there is a man sitting in front of the house, and he is a person who was on the same like plantation, is that how you call it in English, as the mother was. So it was called Sweet Home in Kentucky, and so they have a history together, and the man kind of decides to stay. And now, at the point where I stopped reading, there has been another person on the doorsteps, and it is a girl who seems to be quite weak and confused, and she says her name is Beloved. So I'm very much intrigued to see where it goes from there because I don't really know where this is going. I'm really intrigued to see what happens with Beloved because she seems to be such an interesting character that you don't really know much about. But yeah, so far, unfortunately, not loving this, definitely struggling a little bit, but I am committed to reading this. So I'm not giving up yet, and I'll let you know my thoughts once I have reached the halfway point. So I'm halfway through Beloved, and unfortunately I'm still struggling quite a bit with it, which is weird because I really thought this would be my favorite of the 5 new authors I would try this year. I was like convinced this would be 5 stars, but I feel like I'm just too stupid and uneducated for it, to be honest, which is a shame. And it's definitely a book that I would consider rereading at a later point in time again. But the language is definitely a challenge for me. I still have sentences that I have to read like twice or three times to make sure I kind of understand what it's saying. And yeah, just, not being a native English speaker, this is definitely a little bit of a struggle. And also for the plot, we still have this confusion or mix up of the timelines. So it's often quite hard for me to figure out if we're going back to the past right now or whether it's something that's happening right in this moment. So yeah, this definitely deals with very hard topics. There's a lot of references to the character's past during slavery. So a lot of horrible things are described in this book, and I would highly recommend looking up trigger warnings, especially for pregnant people. I think this can be an even harder read if you're pregnant or you're planning to be pregnant soon or something like that. So yeah, definitely a lot of trigger warnings in this book. There's also this whole weird dynamic with Beloved and Paul, which I honestly don't really understand. I still have no idea where this book is going, and I guess there's a lot of symbolism in it that I'm just not quite grasping, which is what I meant when I said that I'm just a little bit too stupid to get this book, I think. So I'm intrigued to see whether this will change at all when I get to the end of it. But for now, yeah, it's just really a chore to read this for me, and I'm so sad about it. Now, what I can say is that I really very much enjoy the characters in this book, especially our main character. Still don't know how to say the name though, I'm sorry. But she is just incredible. I think the calm strength that emanates from her is great, and I love reading about characters like that. And yeah, just learning about her journey is so heartbreaking because a lot of horrible things have happened to her. And I also really enjoyed learning why her daughter is called Denver. I thought that this whole story, it just had this just a weird feeling, but overall there is kindness in there, and I think for the life of the main character that was something special. And yeah, I enjoyed that. I also enjoy Denver as a character. She's much harder to grasp because she's younger and still figuring things out, but I think that she's quite intriguing, and I'm very interested to see what her part in this story is going to be moving forward. She definitely knows a lot of the secrets of our other characters, and for now she's holding them close, but I think that could be quite an explosive thing as well. With Paul, I don't really know how I feel about him. He's definitely a man, so that's always, when you read these more historical inspired books, not yeah, there's just, but I feel like he's coming from a good place, and I do like some of his scenes and some of his interactions, but then there's this whole thing with Beloved, which is really odd and makes me uncomfortable. So yeah, we'll see about that. I'm always a bit iffy when it comes to the bewitching female trope, but on the other hand, there does seem to be something going on there, and we'll see. Now, with Beloved herself, I still have no idea what's going on, to be honest. There is this weird scene where they go into that clearing, and so her intent seems to be a little bit malicious, but we don't really know what her deal is. So yeah, I'm a bit worried about her characters, but for now she's more just weird. So we'll see. So I'll update you when I've read the next quarter, and we'll see whether this gets any easier for me to read. So I am now 3/4 through Beloved by Toni Morrison, and I thought I'd give you a quick update. So this third quarter was actually my favorite so far. I really enjoyed where the story was going now. We got a lot more information on the background of our characters. And I must admit, I especially love Baby. She is such an interesting character, and it's so sad that we only get the glimpses of her, because, like, honestly, she would be an amazing main character for a book as well. I really love the way that this has almost like a magical touch with her story, and the way that the mood in the town shifted after the big feast. I think the description of that was so interesting. I really enjoyed that. And so that was definitely my favorite part of this third quarter. But we also get more information in general about the characters, especially about the past of our main character, and what she has been through is basically unimaginable. And I think it's so interesting to see her development. So just from her making the decision to leave Sweet Home to to the woman she has become now when we meet her. And I think it's a very interesting characterization, and even though she's very different in a lot of these chapters, you can still definitely see who she is. Like, the sense of herself is like very strong. So I really enjoyed this third quarter now, and it actually made me cry a little bit because the story is sad. It's so sad. But I guess, yeah, that's something you would expect from a story that centers slavery times. It still has a lot of horrific things happening, so there is big content warnings for this book, and I would definitely recommend looking those up if you want to pick up the book yourself. But yeah, I just really enjoyed this third quarter now, and I'm very glad, because I thought this would be a 5-star book. For me personally, I don't think it will be in the end, just because the beginning was so hard to get into for me personally. But I am glad that now I feel like I'm more into it, and I can read it a little bit faster as well. So I am worried about going into the last quarter now, just because right now there is kind of this hopefulness about it, because our main character just has realized who Beloved is, and that brings her a lot of joy. And I also really enjoyed the introspection that we got after that realization. But with the setup of the book, I am pretty sure that this will not have a happy ending. So I'm worried what's gonna happen in this last quarter now, and yeah, we'll see. But I'm glad this third quarter was like so intriguing, emotional. Yeah, just that. So I'll update you when I finish the book, and then we'll discuss. So last night I did finish Beloved. I have now read the last quarter of the book, and I thought I'd give you my final thoughts and update. The sense that I'm just a little bit too dumb for this book still stands. I definitely did not get all of it, and I think that there is so much in here that just did not translate into my brain. So this is definitely a book that I will reread at a later point, where maybe I have a little bit more brain power for it as well. I think there's a lot of like symbolism that just went over my head, and that's totally on me. I think that coming from the third quarter, which I really enjoyed, the ending is quite wild again. So there were a lot of instances where I wasn't really quite sure what is going on, and there is some chapters that are almost like poetry in the end, which obviously speaks to the literary talent of Toni Morrison, but it's just something that my brain is also not used to processing so well. So, yeah, overall, I think I still missed a lot of what this book is trying to say, unfortunately, but I still really, really enjoyed it as well. I think if I had to give it a star rating, which I don't feel very comfortable doing, I would give this a strong 3.5 stars. But yeah, that, as I said, that is just because my brain is just not able to really get everything out of it, and has no, this is not like a judgment of the literary quality of this book. Now, in this last quarter, we had quite a few of the revelations. We know kind of what is going on. We had a lot of the backstory of the characters by that point. So I think that we don't have so many surprises anymore. It's more the way everything wraps up in the end. And we do get a little bit of insight into Beloved's thoughts as well, which I thought was interesting. And as I had suspected, Denver definitely plays a big role in what is happening at the end, and I actually did really enjoy the way that she decided to take the reins, to not just watch what is going on, but to basically determine her own fate with this. So I really, really enjoyed that. And I think that Denver is definitely one of the most interesting characters for me personally in this book. We also see what happens to our main character, and I still feel like there is so much in there that I would have to think like really, really hard about, that I would actually really enjoy having discussed this in school, because I think there is so much in there, but my tiny little brain isn't very good at picking it all up. What I think is really interesting is the way that we see the influence of Paul on the characters. We have these three female characters, and the way that a male presence kind of influences it all. And I thought that was very interesting, because obviously in the end you can say that he is a big reason of giving the main character her sense of self back and her self-worth. But on the other hand, it all starts with him coming to that house and trying to banish the ghost. So I think that is just a very interesting dynamic. And again, I feel like I'm just missing a lot of the things that this book is trying to say about that. But even with that being true, I still found it to be very interesting. And I do really enjoy books that go into this idea of what a male presence does to a female-led household. And yeah, so in that regard, I found it very interesting. But in the end, I still wasn't quite sure what the book is trying to say about that, just because, as I said, I just felt like I'm missing out on a lot of the nuance in this one. I also said before, I think that Baby is my favorite character in this one, and since she didn't play any role in this last quarter, that was a bit sad, but I still just really enjoyed also the like community dynamics that we see in the ending. I just really liked this like coming together of the community to do something, and yeah, it was just so interesting. Also, the way that our main character reacts when a white man comes to the house, I thought was very reflective of the whole book, like of the haunting and everything. And then one thing again where I'm like, I don't really understand what the message was, is the pregnancy part at the end. I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm just keeping it vague. But that part of the like haunting thing. It was a bit confusing to me. I didn't really understand what the point of that was, and if it was like real or whether it was an apparition thing, I don't know. So if you have any insight on that, I would love to hear your thoughts on what the meaning of that was. So overall, yeah, this was an interesting experience, but nonetheless, I had hoped that this book would do more to me. And again, just the way it was written, it was just hard for me to really get to the bottom of things, especially with having a busy life and constantly thinking about other things, and reading this in like small chunks here and there whenever I could squeeze it into my life. So definitely a candidate for reread at some point, but I'm so glad that I've read it. And with that, I have also read all of the 5 new authors that intimidated me that I wanted to read this year. And so you can be on the lookout for a kind of wrap up and ranking video in the upcoming weeks. I hope you're looking forward to that, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!